Ohayuki, Honjitsu no Dira Yukichi Reikyu desu. The World Championship qualifiers for Duel Links Rush Duel happened a few weeks ago, and while I initially started off pretty strong, unfortunately I would end up falling pretty short in the end. But despite that, being able to play so many Rush Duels was incredibly fun, and I wanted to highlight some of the most intense games I played during the qualifiers that weren't on my stream. Throughout the qualifiers, I primarily played different variations on Noodle Art Reboot, as Noodle Ninja was one of the deck themes that drew me to Rush Duel back when it first released in 2020. Most of the duels shown here are using this slightly defensive variant with Combustion Crisis, which matches up pretty nicely into Ultimate Bond, which is probably the strongest deck in Duel Links Rush at the moment. So in this first game, we're going first and we open with no tribute monsters even after our draw for the turn, so we're just going to set 5 and pass. Our opponent tries to go for Essel and they get a tough striker, they start taking out our back row a little bit, and they get the Mirror Innovator on the first turn, so we're going to take a bit of damage for piercing here, and this is where the Combustion Crisis comes in this particular build. Since these are both level 7 monsters, we'd be able to shuffle one of them back into the deck, but unfortunately we don't have that right now. So we'll take a little bit of damage, lose a bit of board here, and then on this turn, I make a misplay with the Seahorse Carrier, because I already have the Kanan on the field, and I have the monsters in hand to perform the Tribute Summon. But I set the Seahorse Carrier instead of keeping it in hand and normal summoning it later to get the Kanan back. But either way, I summon the extra spice, burn and draw, get a Fire Yaro back to hand, and use Tribute to the Doom to remove the Tough Striker and Talismanic Seal Array to get some damage in on the Mirror Innovator, and I'm just trying to push for as much damage as possible. Our opponent draws and uses Ultimate Bond to get the Aim Eagle to hand so they can summon their Barrel Dragon with boosted attack. The Barrel Dragon comes down, but after they flip their coins, they whiff on the effect, so they have to attack into the extra spice. On this turn, I go for Spice and use the Noodle Art Reboot to get back Fire Yaro again. I summon the second Spice and double boost to run over the Barrel Dragon and the set monster. They use Ultimate Bond again, and they're going to summon the Mirror Innovator and try and boost up for a lot of damage here, but we have the Negate attack to prevent it, keep our 2 extra spices on board, and then use Noodle Art Reboot and the double boost, but unfortunately they have Buffered Slime, meaning that we can't deal damage this turn. They get rid of my Buffered Slime with a Ghost Cyclone, and they draw the Barrel Dragon that they shuffled back into the deck with Mirror Innovator. They're going to go for their Ultimate Bond play again, and use the Barrel Dragon effect. It hits this time, getting rid of one of the spices and attacking over the other. We have no tribute monsters this turn, so we set the Forever Freeze, which doesn't really have any real use in this matchup. And then they summon another Mirror Innovator, but their Barrel Dragon misses again. And with this attack, they hit into the Fire Yaro, which is the most damage that they can get on this turn, but leaves us with exactly 100 life points, just enough to make our anime comeback. And we draw for turn. We have no tribute monsters again, so they go for Barrel Dragon. They hit this time once again to remove a defense position monster. But we have the Combustion Crisis this time to get rid of the Mirror Innovator and survive one more turn where we can draw the extra spice, and without even having to go into the battle phase and risk running into a trap card, we can just burn for game. In our second game, we actually get matched up against Tomato Sores, who is another YouTuber who makes Rush Duel content, which I was pretty surprised to see. We go first in this game once again. We're going to set 4 and pass, leave our tribute monster. Our opponent also sets 4 and passes. We draw the extra spice next turn, use the Fiery Blaze to remove the back row, its King's Majesty, which could have negated one of our attacks. Then we're going to double tribute here, get the spice and extra spice on board, and we find out that he is also on Noodle Art Reboot. But another turn goes by and he does not have a tribute monster of his own to use, so we go for the extra spice once again to deal some more burn damage. Then we tribute for another extra spice and use Reboot to get back our Fiery Yarrow and burn a second time. We summon the Kanan to try and get in some damage, tribute to the Doomed, but unfortunately we run into a full field of 14 defenders, which means we won't get any direct damage in this turn. Now here, I boost with the spice just to get the extra spice some attack, just so we can try and get lethal here with a direct attack. We're going to burn with both extra spices on board, and then we attack. We're not able to get in directly. Tomato Swords draws, and again, no tribute monster, just sets 3, which is pretty unfortunate. However, we're in this awkward position again, like last turn, where we have a non-pyro monster on board. But since we have the spice, we can just tribute, and then he surrenders after seeing that we have the burn for lethal without having to attack. In this game, we're going second. Our opponent sets 4 and passes. We don't have any tribute monsters, but because we know that they're playing Yuga, and although it's not displayed in the replay, we know that they're on a legend skill, we know that their monsters probably have low defense because they're either running Ultimate Bond or Maximum Overload, and we confirm that it's Ultimate Bond when we go to attack, so we can just get rid of their monsters. They Ghost Cyclone our Buffered Slime and Shield and Sword, so we're going to be taking a lot of damage this turn. They get the Mirror Innovator, and we're going to get hit for 3,400, then another 500 when the Avant Wolf attacks. We draw. We don't have any tributes, so we just tribute to the Doom to get rid of the Mirror Innovator. They use their Ultimate Bond on this turn, and they shuffle their monster on the field back into the deck so they can use their Ghost Cyclone, but we only had a Fiery Blaze set, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. They summon Gold Rush and Tough Striker and start attacking. We still have one monster on board that we can use, so we can tribute for the extra spice and use Noodle Art Reboot. We use Fiery Blaze to get rid of their back row, but we don't hit any trap cards, and then we Talismanic Seal Array. This will let us clear their board if we don't hit a trap card, and we don't, so we're safe. They just set 3 and pass, so they don't have any tribute monsters, which leaves us to put out our spice, use the Noodle Art Reboot to burn. They Ultimate Bond. They Barrage of Steel, which gets rid of our negate attack, so we're in a pretty dangerous position here, but they don't have the Mirror Innovator. And they mill the Mirror Innovator with their Assault Cannon, and that puts all 3 copies in the graveyard, so even though we don't have our defensive trap cards, we're pretty safe on their next turn since they don't have an immediate way to get it back to hand. And we're gonna go for the Spice and Noodle Art Reboot to clear the Gold Rush, since that will prevent them from adding something back to hand. They draw. They shuffled the Mirror Innovators back into the deck with Surge Bicorn, and tribute for Cybertech Alligator, And even if they had the Mirror Innovator, we had the Combustion Crisis to shuffle it back into the deck. We're left with 100 life points yet again, but in the moment I don't realize my opponent only has 4 cards left in their deck with no cards in their hand. I was desperately trying to see if I had a way to win the game. A Fiery Blaze could have dealt 300 damage, but both of them are in our graveyard, and we needed the extra spice to burn for the last 1000, but we don't draw it. We Talismanic Seal Array to get the boss monsters back into the deck. We just set, and the opponent draws for turn and loses because they don't have enough cards to draw. In this game, we go first again, just set for and pass. Our opponent goes for a Tribute Summon. They're on Royal Demons. We Tribute to the Doom to get rid of the Royal Demons Invasion because we don't have any Tribute monsters. They use the Death Doom Requiem and use Genie's Fire Breath to put the Seal Array back into our hand, which gives us 1 less draw on the next turn, which we kind of desperately need right now because we've gone 2 turns without a Tribute Summon. We draw and have no Tribute Summon again, so we just attack the Heavy Metal. They use Death Doom Requiem again to set 2 monsters and Royal Demon's Phaser to get the Heavy Metal from the graveyard, and then they use Royal Demon's Command to shift the monsters to attack position and boost their attack. Normally they wouldn't be able to change their battle position due to the skill, but the Royal Demon's Command lets them go into attack position. They get in some damage. Once again, we have no Tribute monsters, so we just have a full field of 6 set. We have the Buffered Slime to potentially prevent us from dying if they manage to find lethal. They use Genie's Fire Breath and hit the Buffered Slime and go for Pierce with the Heavy Metal. We take a lot of damage. We draw, still no Tribute monsters. Full board set again, and they go for a Summon Skull and are able to full clear our board. And on this turn, I draw Bolt Tricorn to prevent them from using this set card, but I completely mismanaged this turn, so I summon the Spice and use the Talismanic Seal Array before using the effect to boost, which lowers the amount of attack gain that we would get since there's less normal monsters in our graveyard. I use the effect now and then use a second Talismanic Seal Array, so even though that turn was completely mismanaged, we're still able to full clear their board. Could have done a little bit more. They Death Doom Requiem again, and they actually have the Death Doom this time, so they're able to clear, but we use the Buffered Slime to survive. We have no Tribute monsters, so we just set 3 and pass. They run into our 1400 defenders, and we use the King's Majesty, but we draw no Tribute monsters yet again. They're able to attack, but because we only have 1 draw, there's less chances of us hitting. They Royal Demon's Command and Pierce yet again, and despite potentially being able to make a comeback, we end up losing this game. In this game, I had swapped to a different build that isn't running the Combustion Crisis and the Forever Freeze, since I wasn't finding them to be super useful, or just not seeing the Combustion Crisis in the games where it would have made an impact. So we swapped to the Babysitter Goat and King's Majesty for an attack negation, and we have the Cobalt Kobold to potentially draw. I don't particularly like this variant, and I ended up moving away from it later on in the event as well, but I decided to try it out as a draw engine because I was running into the situation a lot where I just wasn't seeing my Tribute monsters or not seeing the Fiery Blazes or Seal Arrays to clear the opponent's board. So we go second in this game, and our opponent appears to be on aggro as they just normal summon 1500 Beat Sticks. Unfortunately, we only have one normal summon, so we aren't able to summon either of our tribute monsters. So we just set one, set our back row, and pass the turn. Our opponent uses Tribute to the Doomed on our set card and gets in for 4,500 damage. We draw. We're able to go for the extra spice and reboot to try and dig through our deck a little bit more, get some burn damage in. Unfortunately, not really recovering quite yet. Our opponent tributes for Prima Gatarna and Dragius, which is a very threatening board, but we have the negate attack to prevent us from potentially losing on that turn. We burn. We use the Cobalt Kobold and tribute for our extra spice, and we're able to just use the skill and the 2 extra spices to burn and get lethal without ever having to run into the back row if there were any trap cards. But since it's aggro, I don't really think that would have been a big concern.